Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to TV learning programs. I'm teacher Aggrey, teacher of economics. Today I'm going to learn with senior 6 students. And we are still on unit 4, which is balance of payments. And our lesson today, we're going to learn about the solutions to balance of payment deficits. And I expect you learners, at the end of the lesson, you can be able to explain the measures that can be put in place to solve balance of payment deficits. But before I start explaining the solutions to BOP deficits, I have a question that I want us to work out that we learned in the previous lessons. And this is the question. The question is, study the following table and study the following table and answer questions which follow. Figures are in million francs. We have a table which has 3 columns, item or year. We have the column of 1994 and the column of 1995. Those are 2 years. And the question, you're given a table. They are asking you to calculate the net capital flow for both years. Calculate the net capital flow for both years. Part B, calculate the net transfers for both years. Now, we are going to first deal with the first question, which is calculating the net capital flow. And how do we get the net capital flow? How do we get the net capital flow? To get the net capital flow, you remember very well, learners, to get the net capital flow, we get capital inflows, minus capital outflows. Capital flows in form of loans, capital flows in the form of foreign investments. Now, like a capital inflow, that is what a country receives. What comes into the country, what a country has received in the form of a loan, or like people coming from other countries and they're investing into the country, foreign investments. And capital outflows, that is what goes out of the country. Now, to get the net capital flow, we get the capital inflows minus the capital flows. And we are calculating the net capital flow for both years. We are going to start with the year of 1994. When you look at the table, we have for 1994, what is the capital inflow? I want you to look at the table, learners. Check on capital flows, In 1994, the inflow is 20 million and the outflow is 30 million. And to get net capital flow for 1994, we shall get 20 million, which is the inflow, minus the outflow, which is 30 million. Now, if you get 20 million, which is the capital inflow, minus 30 million, which is the outflow, minus 30 million, which is the outflow, 20 million minus 30 million. This is a small figure. If you get a small figure and you subtract it from a big figure, you will get a negative. Now, 20 million minus 30 million, you will get negative 10 million francs. It is a deficit already because it is a negative. It is a negative 10 million francs. That is how we calculate the net capital flow of 1994. Now, to get the net capital flow for 1995, because we are calculating for both years, learners, to get for 1995, the formula to get the net capital flow, we said we get the capital inflow minus the capital outflow. Now, if you check on 1995, the column of 1995, check on capital flows. In 1995, the inflow is 350 million. The outflow is 40 million. Now, if you get 350 million minus 40 million, we shall get 350 million minus 40 million. Minus 40 million. If you get, hope you have your calculators. Help me to calculate this. If we get 340 million minus 350 million minus 40 million, it will give us 310 million. We shall get 310 million francs. We shall get 310 million francs. That is the net capital flow for 1995. That is how we calculate net capital flows. You get the capital inflow minus the capital outflow. What comes into the country and what goes out of the country. Then on part B, it is calculated the net transfers for both years. How do we get net transfers? Learners, do you remember how we calculate net transfers? To get the net transfers, we get transfers into the country, net transfers. We get transfers into the country, transfers into the country, minus transfers out of the country, from the country, minus transfers from the country, And we are calculating the net transfers for both years. Net transfers for both years. And we have 2 years. When you look at the table, how do we get the net transfer for 1994? For 1994, because we are calculating the net transfers for both years, we shall get transfers into the country minus transfers from the country. Transfers into the country, what a country has received. That is in terms of donations and gifts. Because what we call a transfer, that is the amount of money that an individual receives without rendering a service. If you're given a donation, the country did not work for that donation. If you're given a gift, you did not work for that gift. Those are what we call transfers. What you receive without rendering a service or without working for it. Now, in 1994, a country received a transfer. We check on transfers. If you look at the table, transfers to the country. To the country. That is what the country received. Transfers to the country, receivables. Now, in 1994, the country received a transfer of 5 million. Of 5 million. We subtract minus transfers from the country. Transfers from the country, that is what a country gave out. Like a country gave out a donation or a gift to other countries. That is a transfer out of the country. And from the country, in 1994, it is 10 million. If you get 5 million minus 10 million, we shall get negative 5 million. It is a deficit. It gives us negative 5 million. Now, the net transfer in 1994 is negative 5 million francs. Is negative 5 million francs. That is the net transfer in 1994. And for 1995, because we are calculating the net transfers for both years, to get the net transfer of 1995, we shall get transfers into the country minus transfers out of the country. Look at the column of 1995. And on transfers, in 1995, transfers to the country is 20 million. To the country, what a country received is 20 million. And we get transfers into the country minus transfers from the country. Now, transfers into the country in 1995 is 20 million. We shall get 20 million, which is transfer into the country, minus transfer from the country. And transfer from the country is in 1995, transfers to the country, from the country in 1995, it is 10 million. It is 10 million. Now we shall get 20 million minus 10 million. Minus 10 million. Minus 10 million. If you get 20 million minus 10 million, we shall get 10 million. Now, the net transfer in 1995 is 10 million francs. Is 10 million francs. Is 10 million francs. That is how we get the net transfers. Now, learners, after understanding how we calculate the net capital flow and the net transfers, I want you to think, what could be the measures, solutions to balance of payment deficits? How can we solve the problem, BOP problems, or BOP deficit? Who can tell us? You remember what we learned in the previous lessons. We learned about balance of payment positions. And among the balance of payment positions, we have what we call a balance of payment deficit, or what we call an unfavorable balance of payment. What is balance of payment deficit, learners? What is balance of payment deficit? Someone is telling us that balance of payment deficit, this is where the total expenditure on imports is greater than the total receipts on export. What a country spends on buying goods and services from other countries, it is greater than what it earns when it sells its goods and services from another country. That is what we call a BOP deficit. Now, how can we solve a balance of payment deficit? What could be the measures that a country can put in place to solve BOP deficit? If the country is spending more money to buy goods from other countries and it earns less, now how can the country reduce expenditures so that it can export more and it generates more incomes compared to expenditure, so that it can get a surplus instead of a deficit? One of the solutions to balance of payment deficit, establishing export promotion industries so as to increase the volume of exports, and this increases a country's export earnings abroad, hence reducing the balance of payment deficit. Export promotion. And what is export promotion? What is export promotion industries? Encouraging, establishing export promotion industries. What are export promotion industries? Now, export promotion industries refers to the establishment of domestic industries, the establishment of domestic industries to produce manufactured goods, mainly for the foreign market. Mainly for the foreign market. Exporting. We are targeting the foreign market. Mainly for the foreign market. Now, if a country establishes domestic industries to produce manufactured goods which are of good quality, which will increase the demand for exports, and the country will be able to export more, and it will generate more revenues, hence solving BOP deficit. Export promotion, adding value on what we are selling to other countries. Now, an example. Instead of exporting raw cotton to other countries, it is better we establish industries and we manufacture cotton, we process cotton into clothes. We produce clothes and export clothes which can attract more people to buy clothes. And the country will be able to sell more, and which will increase earnings on exports. But when you export raw cotton, that is a raw material. And the demand of a raw material will be low. You will not be able to sell more and increase earnings on exports. But now, if we process cotton and produce clothes, and we sell clothes to other countries, this will increase the demand of what we are selling because they are of better quality, which increases earnings, hence solving the balance of payment deficit. The second solution is encouraging liberalization. Liberalization. And what is liberalization? Liberalization comes from the word liberty. Libero. Freedom. You have the freedom, a state of being free to do something. There are no restrictions. Now, encouraging liberalization refers to the removal of unnecessary restrictions, the removal of unnecessary restrictions by the government in order to encourage people to invest, in order to encourage people to invest, in order to encourage people to invest, to invest. Now, when a country removes restrictions that could not allow people to invest in different activities, and now people have freedom to invest in different activities, this will increase production of goods. And the country will be able to export more to other countries, which will increase earnings on exports compared to expenditure, hence solving BOP deficit. The third solution is controlling inflation in the country. You know what we call inflation? That is an increase in price of goods and services. Now, if inflation is controlled and there is no inflation in the country will be able to produce at a low cost. And when it produces at a low cost, it will sell its products at a low cost, at low prices. And this will increase the demand of products because those products sold to other countries are cheap. The demand will increase and the country will be able to sell more products to other countries, which will increase earnings on exports, hence solving BOP deficit. The third solution, in order to solve BOP deficit, it is encouraging political stability in the country. Encouraging political stability. Now, if there is security in the country, this will encourage more people to invest in different activities. And this will increase production because more people are investing in different activities. And the country will export more goods and it will earn more incomes, hence reducing BOP deficit. And even when there is security, this reduces expenditure on importation of expensive military hardware, like firearms, to curb down insecurities into the country. And when expenditure is reduced, a country will be solving BOP deficits. The next point, the next solution, is joining regional cooperation. Joining regional cooperation. And what is regional cooperation? Or what we call economic integration. Economic integration or regional cooperation, it is a cooperation of several countries to trade together in a given region in order to enjoy economic benefits. And this will widen the market of products. Now, if a country is trading with other countries like EAC, the East African Community, what we call EAC, that is the East African Community. The East African Community. An example, the East African Community, an example of a regional cooperation. Now, if a country is trading with other countries in a given region, or like COMESA, Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. Now, if a country is trading with different countries, with other countries in a given region, now a country will be able to sell more of its products to those countries. Now, like Rwanda, a producer of tea, if it is trading with eastern and southern countries, it will export her tea to these countries, and it will be able to sell more and generate more incomes, hence reducing BOP deficit. The next point, or the next solution to reduce balance of payment deficits, it is use of protectionism through reducing on the amount of goods imported in order to reduce foreign expenditures, hence solving the balance of payment deficit. Use of protectionism. What is protectionism? Learners, you remember what you learned in the previous lesson. Hope you learned that about protectionism. What is protectionism? Someone is telling us that protectionism, what we call protectionism is a government policy, to limit trade with other countries. Protectionism, protecting your economy, is a government policy to limit trade with other countries. That is protectionism. You're putting barriers in order to discourage people to import goods from other countries. There is high demand of foreign products. And when there is high demand of foreign products, this indicates that there is high expenditure on imports compared to earnings, which causes a BOP deficit. Now, in order to discourage people to import, the country will adopt protectionism measures, like what we call an import quota. It will limit on the quantity of goods bought from other countries. If people have been buying more goods from other countries, the country may adopt an import quota. It limits on the quantity. Now, people will start importing less, and this will reduce expenditure on imports. And even the country can impose tariffs on imported products. What are tariffs? Those are taxes levied on imports or exports. Now, if a country charges high taxes on imported products, it is discouraging people to import in order to reduce the demand. And when the demand reduces, that one indicates that there is less expenditure. In order to reduce expenditure, hence solving balance of payment deficit by adopting what we call protectionism, trade restrictions to discourage people to import in order to reduce expenditures abroad, in order to solve balance of payment deficit. The next solution is export diversification, to diversify. What does it mean? It is increasing, producing a variety of products. Diversification, you produce a variety. Now, if a country produces a variety, various products, and it exports to other countries, because it is selling more different types of goods to other countries, or different types of products to other countries, the country will be able to generate more incomes instead of depending on one product. Take an example. Now, if a country is producing only coffee, now, if it exports coffee and the demand of coffee has reduced at the international market, this will affect the country because it is depending on one commodity. Now, if it exports to other countries and the demand of that product has reduced, the country will sell less coffee and it will earn less. But if it is producing a variety, if the demand of one product reduces, it can be able to sell other products because the demand of all products cannot reduce at a go. Now, other products may compensate that product where the demand has reduced. And the country will be able to generate more incomes, hence reducing balance of payment deficit. Now, the last solution on how to solve balance of payment deficit, it is encouraging import substitution strategy in order to minimize the scarce foreign exchange that is spent on foreign goods, hence solving balance of payment deficit. import substitution strategy, what we call import substitution strategy. Import substitution strategy refers to the establishment of domestic industries, to produce goods, to produce commodities which were formerly imported. To produce commodities which were formerly imported. That is import substitution strategy. An example, for the case of Rwanda, we don't have industries that manufacture motorcycles or that produce motorcycles. And if we need those motorcycles, we buy them from other countries because we don't have industries that produce motorcycles. If we need them, we shall buy them from other countries. And when we buy them from other countries, we are spending money abroad because we are buying from other countries. Now, in order to reduce expenditure on goods imported from other countries, if a country establishes industries that produce goods which were formerly imported. Now, if we establish industries in Rwanda that produce motorcycles, now there is no need of buying motorcycles because we can produce our own motorcycles. Now, this will reduce expenditure on importation. That amount of money that was spent on buying imports will be saved. The expenditure has reduced. Now, instead of buying, the country will export. And when it exports, this will increase earnings on exports, hence solving balance of payment deficits. Before we end the lesson, learners, I have a question, homework. As you're writing this question, I can read through the question. The question is, what policy measures would you suggest to reduce balance of payment problems in Rwanda? What policy measures would you suggest to reduce balance of payment problems in Rwanda? What could be those measures? And when you're stating these measures, you should use words like through, encouraging export promotion, establishing import substitution strategy, encouraging political stability, because you're suggesting ways, the methods that a country can adopt to reduce balance of payment problems. Hope learners, you can be able to explain the measures to reduce balance of payment deficits. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being attentive. We meet next time. Thank you.